On the day Nick got engaged to his sweetheart, he specifically chose the day I left for Germany to study. He told his fiancée, "Vivian is mischievous, you're gentle. From now on, let her stay in Germany and not come back." Our friends were all worried, thinking I'd rush back to New York overnight, crying and causing a scene. But they didn't know, I wouldn't cry or cause a scene, nor would I return. Before leaving for Germany, I accepted someone else's proposal. In just half a month, I was getting married. Before the wedding, I sent back all the gifts Nick had given me over the past 10 years, including the ring I used to cherish. The last time I confessed to Nick, it was pretty awkward for me. The room was full of people, but there was dead silence, not a word spoken. It took a few long minutes before Stella, who was sitting next to him, stood up to ease the tension. "Come on, Nick, you're embarrassing Vivian. She's still a kid." Someone scoffed from the corner, a 21-year-old kid. Laughter erupted around the room, blending together. I stubbornly stood my ground, refusing to leave in disgrace. But my vision of Nick became blurry. "Vivian, do I need to spell it out for you?" Nick flicked some ash off his cigarette and stood up. "I've been rejecting you clearly since you were 16. I choked a little, but when I was dating young, you were obviously upset. That's because you're an adopted daughter. If you made a mistake, it'd only bring shame to your adoptive parents. What about that kiss on my 18th birthday?" Nick's eyes briefly showed disgust. "Vivian, you were drunk that night, causing a huge scene. I just wanted to end the chaos quickly." I suddenly laughed. But as I laughed, tears fell even harder. "Nick, you've had 4 girlfriends. But every time I made a scene, you'd break up with them. Can you really say you didn't like me even a little?" "That's because I hadn't met the woman I truly liked." He reached out and pulled Stella into his arms. "Listen carefully, Vivian. I'll only say this one last time, I like Stella. I'm going to marry her. Your little tricks won't work this time." Stella looked at him with shyness and delight, saying softly, "Nick." Without hesitation, he leaned down and kissed her. She wrapped her arms around his neck, standing on tiptoe to respond. Their kiss was intimate, passionate, as if no one else was around. In that instant, I thought of that kiss when I was 18. Just as lingering, just as intense. It made me dream for 4 years without waking up, foolishly thinking he actually liked me. Nick moved out of the villa, living with Stella. The day he moved, I was busy with graduation work at school. Choosing that day was probably to prevent me from making a scene. But this time, I didn't rush to find Nick and cause trouble. After an initial ripple in my heart, I shook it off and cleared my mind. That evening, I had a graduation dinner with a few close classmates. While taking a break to the bathroom, I ran into Stella. "Vivian, Nick's here too. Want to join us?" I shook my head. "I've made plans with my classmates, I'll pass." Stella's eyes suddenly reddened. "Vivian, I come from a humble background. Uncle and Auntie already don't like me. Can you stop saying bad things about me to them?" I was surprised and shocked. "Stella, I've never mentioned you to our elders." Stella gave a bitter smile. "I know you've liked Nick for many years. It's hard to accept me being with him. I understand. But Vivian, we're all girls. Isn't it better to be kind in what we do and say? My temperament is much like my mom's, straightforward and without games." Hearing this, I got worked up. "Stella, quit making stuff up about me." Before I finished speaking, Stella suddenly collapsed to her knees. "Vivian, I beg you." I was startled, stepping forward to lift her up. But before I could touch her, she fell hard to the floor. "Vivian, what are you doing?" Nick's angry voice rang out. A strong force pushed me aside. My knee hit the wall edge. The pain was sharp and intense. "Nick, don't misunderstand, Vivian didn't mean it. You're defending her. I've had enough of her games since we were kids." Nick bent down and picked Stella up. His eyes were cold with anger as he looked at me. "Vivian, apologize." "Nick. Shut up. Apologize." Stella nestled in his arms, crying softly, pitifully. My knee was bleeding, the blood trickling down my leg to my ankle, 2 glaring red lines. Yet Nick acted like he didn't even see it. He looked at me as if I were a villain. I suddenly laughed at myself, unwilling to defend another word. I apologize. Nick seemed a bit taken aback but soon looked even more annoyed. Not enough. I straightened up and bowed deeply. Is this okay? Stella watched me, her lips slightly curved, then quickly sobbed and softly urged Nick to let it go. I can't take this. Nick's heart was filled with ache instantly. Vivian, I've told you, Stella is different. Bullying her won't make me break up with her, only cherish her more and dislike you. He carried Stella away. I stood there for a long, long time. The wound on my knee ached deeply, but my heart felt empty and light. I knew it. In that moment, whatever obsession or infatuation I had was gone. Completely vanished. That night, Stella posted 3 tweets in a row. They were screenshotted and sent to me by some ill-intentioned people from our circle. Especially Nick's replies, highlighted prominently. I knew their hidden agenda was to see me humiliated. In the past, I'd always impulsively run to Nick, crying and causing trouble. He'd be impatient but would give in each time, making me mistakenly believe he cared. But this time, I ignored it. But she dialed a call from 7 days ago. Auntie, it's Vivian. About what you mentioned, I've decided. When I was 7, my parents died in an accident. My uncle, who was close to my dad, took me in. And Auntie, she was my mom's best friend growing up. But later, she eloped with her lover, and they lost touch. After wandering halfway around the world, she finally settled in Germany. By then, my parents had already passed away. Auntie wanted me to go live in Germany. She also wanted to fulfill a promise she made with my mom when they were young. She wanted me to marry into her family, become her daughter-in-law. 7 days ago, I didn't agree. But I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I told her I would think about it. Just tonight, I suddenly let go of all those years of obsession. That one-sided love was silly and ridiculous. I didn't want to be the laughingstock anymore. 6 months ago, Nick arranged for me to continue my studies in Germany. At the time, I didn't want to go and cried a lot. But he never budged. Now I think it's a pretty good opportunity. Maybe it's destiny's way of arranging my fate. On the other end of the call, Auntie was thrilled. Vivian, Ken's just waiting for you to say yes so he can fly to New York and propose. I held my phone, feeling unexpectedly warm. But all the laughter in my ear made me feel strangely confused. 15 years living together and 7 years of liking him. Turns out, it only takes 7 days to completely let go. Nick and Stella's engagement day. They purposely picked the same day I went to Germany. So, not many came to see me off. When I got off the plane, I turned on my phone. Messages kept pouring in. Most were about Nick and Stella's engagement. I just laughed it off. Deleted and blocked their contacts right away. Before coming to Germany, I met Ken. I didn't want any drama or attention. Ken respected my wishes. He proposed, we exchanged rings. Just like that, we got engaged quietly. Now my account had an extra billion as a bride price. On my ring finger, I had a simple band. As I was about to get into the car Ken's family sent to pick me up, my phone suddenly rang. It was Nick's cousin, Gina. Vivian, my brother's engagement is about to start. Where are you? I just got to Germany. Then hurry back, you can still make it. Why should I go back? I asked calmly. Gina was taken aback. Vivian, are you out of your mind? If you don't come back to cry and make a scene, my brother's really going to be someone else's. Why should I come back and make a scene? Isn't it your brother's happy day? Vivian? Gina's voice suddenly rose. Are you crazy? I was about to hang up when Stella's voice came through. Vivian, aren't you coming to our engagement? Nick always saw you as a sister, so that makes me your sister-in-law, and I'd love your blessing. I looked over to where Ken was standing by the car. His tall frame and gentle eyes put me at ease. Sure, I wish you two all the best, I replied. Nick was in the garden with some friends, smoking. He kept glancing at Gina and the others. He knew they were probably giving Vivian the heads up again. Just like countless times before. Anytime there was another woman around him, those ladies would inform Vivian. Then Vivian would come crying to him. He always hated needy women and found it annoying, so he'd just kick those women to the curb. This time was probably no different. That's why he picked the day Vivian left for Germany. It wasn't exactly smooth sailing though, with the engagement ceremony scheduled for 6 p.m. It bugged Nick a bit. If Vivian found out and jumped on a plane, she'd make it back just in time. Nick, what if Vivian comes back to cause trouble? Yeah, you're getting engaged to someone else. She's gonna flip out. She seemed pretty calm lately, even with you and Stella getting cozy. She didn't react. The cigarette in Nick's fingers had a long ash hanging. He forgot to flick it off, deep in thought about his friend's last comments. Vivian had been unusually quiet these days. But knowing her, she wasn't one to stay quiet. He'd rejected her so many times over the years. She was always resilient, never once considering giving up. Sure, she was older now, a bit more mature. Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he chuckled, stubbing out his cigarette. Just wait and see. She's never been one to stay put. So, you think Vivian will come back to stir things up? Nick didn't reply but was pretty sure of it. That girl always had love on the brain. During her teens, she read romance novels day and night. All those crazy antics, she practiced on him. He knew her well. He was willing to bet she'd show up just as the engagement kicked off. Make sure security keeps an eye out, Nick told them. Don't let any chaos break out. Just as he finished speaking, Gina came running up, pulling her dress along. Vivian. Vivian's here, right outside the gate. Nick felt an odd sense of joy but quickly masked it with a frown. She's causing trouble again, never learns. What do we do now? If she causes a scene, our family will be humiliated. Nick's face grew colder as he strode outside. I'll see what game she's playing. His entourage followed him outside. Just as they left the garden, Stella suddenly called him softly. Nick. Stella wore a beautiful satin gown. Her hair was styled in a lovely braid, and her makeup was subtle. The engagement ceremony was at 6, they still had a few hours. Stella was anxious inside, but she didn't show it at all. What brings you here? Nick stopped walking. His eyes fell on Stella's face. She was beautiful, the kind of beauty that makes a man want to protect her, unlike Vivian's wild nature. Due to her humble background, Stella was a bit timid, always speaking in a gentle voice. When he met Stella, he was getting a headache from Vivian's antics. He was easily drawn to Stella's gentle and serene nature. Plus, unlike the previous girlfriends who had come on to him, he and Stella met because he saved her from trouble. Guys usually have that hero complex. So his feelings for Stella were quite different. She wasn't just someone to mess around with. I heard Vivian's back. Stella didn't finish her sentence before her eyes started to redden. I am kind of worried. She bit her lip and looked down. Nick, what if we can't go through with the engagement today? What are you thinking? Nick lifted his hand, placed it on Stella's shoulder, and gave her a reassuring pat. Don't worry, I'll go take care of it now. But Stella held on to Nick's sleeve. Nick, I'm scared. I'm afraid you'll go with her. Tears rolled down from Stella's eyes. She looked so fragile standing there, like she might break at any moment. Nonsense, Stella, my brother doesn't even like Vivian, Gina said with a smug smile. Vivian's so spoiled and always throwing fits, my brother's had enough of her. He would never go with her. Gina truly didn't like Vivian. Ever since Vivian was adopted by their family, Gina's uncle and aunt, who used to adore her, started putting Vivian ahead of her. They said Vivian needed to be treated well for appearance's sake, but Gina still detested her. For years, her favorite thing was watching Vivian embarrass herself. Now that Vivian was shipped off to Germany, hardly anyone saw her off. They packed up all her belongings and sent them ahead to Germany weeks ago, as if they were worried she'd refuse to leave. Gina couldn't have been happier about it. As long as Vivian wasn't around, she didn't care who became her sister-in-law. Nick suddenly looked at Gina. Weren't you always getting along with Vivian? There's no way I got along with her. I couldn't stand her, Gina cried, giving up her previous charade. She'd only acted close to Vivian in the past to gain her trust and make her listen to her. But now, she didn't have to keep up the act, and she felt relieved. Gina didn't notice the slight change in Nick's expression and continued, how about this? You stay with your fiancé, and I'll go handle Vivian. Don't worry, I'll make sure she embarrasses herself. How do you plan to embarrass her? Nick's voice was calm. I'll have the bodyguards throw her out. She's crashing an engagement party. Her parents will be mortified. Nick's hands suddenly went up. The sharp sound of a slap echoed, and everyone froze, especially Stella. Her brows furrowed as she looked at Nick, the darkness in his eyes growing. Why did you hit me? Gina cried, covering her face. Vivian is still, technically, my sister, Nick replied harshly, and you should be calling her your sister too. She's been our family's ward for over 10 years, Gina. Why are you defending her? You said you couldn't stand her. Gina cried more in surprise than pain. We wouldn't say these things if not for your hatred. Nick stood silent for a long time. Did he really hate Vivian like everyone said? When she first joined the family, they were the best of friends. If Vivian got hurt, he would cheer her up and carry her home. If she got bullied at school, he'd be there immediately to protect her. He even bought her sanitary pads when she first got her period. Vivian had always depended on him. As they grew older, she got possessive, and he initially liked her clinging to him. When did things change? Nick suddenly felt confused. Stella's sobs snapped him back to reality. Oh right, it was Vivian who changed first. As she grew, spoiled by the family, she became unruly and domineering, refusing to let him be with any other woman. That's why he grew tired and distant, sending her off to Germany against her pleas. He only wanted her to grow up and mature. He figured once she learned, he'd bring her back. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone in a strange city after everything they'd been through. But it seemed she hadn't learned right from wrong. On such a joyous day, she still acted selfishly, causing chaos right after arriving. Nick pulled Stella into a hug. Go wash your face, and let the makeup artist fix you up. Once I handle Vivian, I'll come see you. The engagement will happen on time, don't worry. Nick dried Stella's tears and then turned to leave. Stella stood there, watching Nick's figure drift away. For some reason, she still felt an inexplicable unease deep down. Gina had just raised a very good point. Everyone knew how much he disliked Vivian. Yet, with just a few words from Gina, he actually slapped his cousin. Did he really dislike Vivian? Or maybe, deep inside, was there something different about Vivian? When Nick reached the main entrance, he didn't see Vivian. But her pink Mini was parked quietly there. Standing by the car was her best friend, Taylor. Nick's steps suddenly paused. It felt like something gently tugged at his heart, making it sink a little. That's when he remembered. Vivian had given this car to Taylor before leaving New York. When Taylor saw him, she immediately walked over. Nick noticed she had a red envelope in her hand. Taylor had no expression on her face and got straight to the point. Vivian asked me to bring gifts for you and Stella. But Nick didn't reach out to take them. Taylor frowned slightly, and said there was one more thing. Go ahead. Vivian left in a hurry and didn't really get a chance to see you. She tried calling a few times, but you didn't answer. So she couldn't get it back. On your last birthday, she gave you an antique brooch. It was a token of love from her mom to her dad. Taylor smirked a little and said, Vivian mentioned that this brooch is meant for her future husband. Leaving it with you now just doesn't fit. Mr. Nick, can you give the brooch to me? I'll take it to her when I visit Vivian in Germany. Nick suddenly looked down, his eyes landing on the blue shimmer over his chest. When he got dressed this morning, He had picked this sapphire brooch for some reason. It didn't exactly match his suit, but he didn't change it. Now, when he looked at the brooch again, all he felt was discomfort. Future husband, huh? Nick couldn't help but feel uneasy at the thought of Vivian marrying someone else. Having a husband to share her life with, how could she marry another man when she liked him so much? She didn't come herself and sent Taylor to ask for the brooch. Honestly, her actions had really thrown him off. Mr. Nick? Tell Vivian that it's not right to take back gifts once given. But if she's really determined, then she should come and talk to me herself. Nick finished and turned to leave, but Taylor quickly stopped him. Mr. Nick, please wait a moment. I'll call Vivian right now. Vivian is getting married. Such an important brooch cannot stay with another man. Vivian reminded her several times to ensure the brooch was brought to her wedding, so she could personally pin it on her groom. Taylor had never liked Nick, but Vivian had always been so stubborn. She was like a fool, hung up on him for so many years only to be cast aside. Taylor felt the urge to slap Nick every time she thought about it. But now Vivian had finally moved on and found such a wonderful man. Taylor was genuinely happy for her. This trip was important. She couldn't fail. When I got the call from Taylor, I was already almost at Ken's place. Taylor, what's up? Vivian, I went to Nick like you asked for the brooch. But he wouldn't give it up. He said if you want it, you'd have to ask yourself. I glanced at Ken next to me, feeling a little sheepish. We were still pretty much strangers, even if he acted polite and refined. There was just a strong aura around him that was hard to ignore. He'd taken a work call earlier in the car, giving orders with such decisiveness. That natural air of authority made me feel even more green and youthful. I hadn't even responded to Taylor when the phone was suddenly taken over by Nick's voice. Vivian, do you want the brooch, or are you just causing trouble? I was taken aback, then laughed in disbelief. If you're trying to ruin my engagement to Stella, I'd advise you not to bother. If you want the brooch, take it back the way you gave it. Such a precious thing shouldn't go through someone else's hands. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my tone calm. Taylor is my best friend. You can give it to her. I'll take responsibility for any consequences. Nick laughed a little. Vivian, how clear do I need to be? However it was given to me, that's how it should be taken back. The call ended abruptly. I was both angry and humiliated, my face gradually burning red. How did I give him that brooch? On my 18th birthday, Nick and I got drunk. It was in my bedroom on the 3rd floor of Nick's old house. He pressed me against the door and kissed me passionately. By the end, I could barely stand, and he was clearly moved. But he somehow managed to stop. Before he left, I called out to him and put the brooch in his hand. I explained the significance of the brooch to him. He didn't say anything, but he kept it. That made me think he silently accepted my feelings. The past few years felt like a terrible dream. Now that I've woken up, I just want to put it all behind me. Thought Nick would happily return the brooch, as if throwing away trash. But I never expected him to say what he said. It was only then I realized the foolishness of youth always comes with a price someday. If the brooch didn't have such meaning, I wouldn't bother taking it back. But now I'm getting married. It's not fair to Ken to leave the brooch with Nick. Is something wrong? Ken's voice suddenly broke through. I instinctively looked up, my eyes meeting his deep gaze. The feelings inside were so hard to swallow. I didn't want to hide it, but our current unfamiliarity made it difficult to express. No. I eventually shook my head. I was pondering in my mind. Even if I have to ask Nick's dad for help, I'll do whatever it takes to get the stuff back. So I made up my mind and just started to relax. It's really no big deal, just a little thing with Nick. I put on a carefree look and gave Ken a smile. I can handle it. Ken didn't press any further. He just nodded gently. All right, if anything gets tough, Vivian, you can always find me. After all, you're my fiancé now. Hearing him say fiancé made the back of my neck heat up. I'm engaged now, huh? In just 2 more weeks, I'll be marrying him. There's this bittersweet feeling in my heart, kind of vague but also a hint of hopeful joy. I didn't have the courage to make eye contact with him. I just glanced quickly, then nodded and mumbled an mm. Ken didn't say more. We arrived at Ken's house. He got out first, then turned to help me. I noticed the engagement ring on his middle finger. Since the day he put it on, he hasn't taken it off. Ken helped me out of the car. Once I was out, he didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he held it naturally. At first, it felt a bit uneasy. But his hand was warm and dry. His fingers were long and strong. My heart suddenly settled down. It felt like this is how it's supposed to be. Ken. Auntie saw us walking hand in hand. She was instantly all smiles. Before we even got close, she quickly came up to us. She scooped me into a hug, tears streaming down. Vivian, you look so much like your mom when she was young. My tears, they just couldn't be held back anymore. Her scent smelled so familiar, just like my mom's faint memory. Ken, off to the side, shook his head a bit helplessly. He handed us tissues. Auntie, you and Vivian hugging and crying like this, someone might think I bullied you. Auntie married Ken's dad when she was 40. She never had kids, but she treated the children without blood ties as her own. Ken always respected her. I knew that for a long time. Still, I never quite got why Ken accepted this engagement. After all, it had nothing to do with him. But Auntie told me not to worry. Said I'd understand the reason someday. So I didn't pry further. Auntie chuckled and helped me dry my tears. She held my hand tightly. Vivian, come home with Auntie. I instinctively looked at Ken. He was looking at me too. Behind him, the trees were lush and green. When I looked over, Ken's eyes were filled with soft smiles. He reached out his hand to me. Vivian, let's go home. With 20 minutes left till 6, Stella had finished all her makeup and hair. But Nick hadn't come downstairs from the lounge yet. Stella hesitated for a moment before going over. The lounge door wasn't locked. There were faint voices inside. Stella quietly moved closer. Nick, is Vivian really not coming back? If she were, she'd already be back. No way she's making it by now. Nick, I've actually wanted to ask you for a while. Do you really feel nothing for Vivian? You two grew up together, she's beautiful, innocent, and she's all about you. Stella instinctively held her breath. There was a long silence before Nick spoke up. No feelings. How could you feel something for her? Nick chuckled. He's 5 years older than Vivian. When Vivian got home, she was just starting school. Even when she grew up and turned into a beauty, Nick, for some reason, remembered that night on her 18th birthday. He must have been out of his mind to kiss her, all dizzy and dazed. And he took that brooch. But Vivian's really pretty now. Yeah, a few of my buddies are into her. Remember last year's horse race? Oh, for sure. She wore that red riding outfit and won first place. I still remember how she smiled so brightly when she took off her hat on the podium. Nick remembered too. He remembered that day vividly, how Vivian couldn't stop chattering at him, showing off her trophy and pony, and going on and on about how handsome the prize guest was. But in her heart, all she thought of was him, just sneaking glances. Nick's lips curled up slightly. They both loved horseback riding. Vivian's little pony, it's still at the ranch. Stella suddenly opened the door. Nick. She wore a white gown, shimmering in satin. It was a replica of Nick's mom's engagement dress. His mother came from a modest background. His father's legendary rescue had led to a beautiful marriage tale. To this day, everyone still talks about it with delight. Nick's proudest thing in life is his parents' deep love. Maybe that's why, when he saved Stella, he had no choice but to feel something special for her. And now, standing there in front of him, Stella looked so much like his mom did in those old photos, gentle and graceful. Nick's heart softened instantly. Though he never imagined getting this far with Stella, at least today, he'd give her a perfect engagement. Nick stood up, reaching out to Stella. Stella gave a small, gentle smile, holding her dress as she walked to him. I was worried since you didn't come down sooner. All good now, let's head out. Are things with Vivian settled? Nick glanced at the sapphire brooch on his chest. Vivian's a wild card, you're gentle, just keep her in Germany from now on, don't let her come back. Stella felt a sudden surge of joy but kept worry on her face. Is that really okay? Vivian's used to getting her way, I wonder if she'll feel bummed being on her own out there. Nick's voice was calm, let her get a little upset, she'll learn to be sensible. Stella didn't say more. She gently hooked her arm through his as they walked downstairs. It was 6 o'clock. Her engagement party was about to start. From today on, she wouldn't have to live that miserably poor life anymore. No more living in those sketchy neighborhoods. No more sharing a cramped room with her 2 sisters. Her family would rise with her. Nick was like a gift from the heavens, a chance to jump social classes. She was going to hold on to him tight. And she'd never let go. My wedding with Ken was set for 2 weeks later. Time was tight. But Ken's family took the wedding of their firstborn son very seriously. They'd been planning for years. So while busy, everything was going smoothly. Aunt told me. When Ken was a kid, he got really sick. After he recovered, his family took him to see a master. They were told he had to marry in September of his 27th year, then his life would be smooth, healthy, and prosperous. His family took it seriously. So once I accepted the engagement, everyone in Ken's family was thrilled. I got tons of valuable gifts. The most meaningful was a pair of jade bangles from Ken's birth mother. When Ken gave them to me, I felt touched, yet also guilty and uneasy. The best thing to give in return was my mom's brooch that she gave my dad. But right now, it's still with Nick. Maybe Ken saw I was feeling down. He took me to the garden. Vivian, are you okay? He asked worriedly. The bangles on my wrist shimmered with deep green. Even if I wasn't savvy about luxury, I knew their worth. I hate when people are nice to me. If they're nice by a little, I want to repay them 10-fold, 100-fold. I ran through a list of gifts I could give Ken in my mind. Nothing seemed good enough. I was already feeling guilty and upset. Then I caught Ken's gentle gaze. For some reason. When I finally let go of Nick, I didn't cry. When I left New York after 21 years, I didn't cry. When Nick wouldn't give back that brooch, I didn't cry either. But right then, tears started falling. Ken got a bit flustered. Even though he's a perfect gentleman. Bred from a good family. It was clear he had little experience comforting girls. As he wiped my tears with a handkerchief, he was kinda clumsy. I laughed through the tears. Ken, you're wrecking my makeup. You were wearing makeup? He asked seriously. I thought you were just naturally beautiful. I admit, I'm a little vain and shallow sometimes. Just like that, I felt happier. Ken, are you this smooth because you've dated lots of girls? Do kindergarten crushes count? I widened my eyes. You didn't date as you got older? If I said no, that'd be a lie. When I was in college abroad, I dated a girl. We realized we weren't a match, so we broke up on good terms. Any crushes since then? Ken paused for a bit. Yeah, there was someone. Just my luck, she wasn't into me. Kinda understood then. Maybe he only agreed to this marriage because someone he liked loved another. Out of nowhere, a slight bitterness surfaced within me. But quickly, I reassured myself. This was good. At least I wouldn't feel too guilty inside. When I left Ken's house that day, Ken told me, Vivian, I hope you'll see me as your future husband from the heart. I know you're always independent and capable. But letting your guard down sometimes would make me happy too. I felt like my heart cracked open a bit. Ken, I will. I first gave Ken a pair of cufflinks and a tie clip. Not super expensive, but something I whimsically designed myself. Clean. I didn't design them for Nick back then. I was just missing Mom and Dad. So I turned the longing into pencil sketches. My wedding plans were kicking off full swing. But Ken's family hadn't publicized who the bride was yet. I was new at school and didn't want to show off. Plus, my stuff with Nick wasn't settled. When Nick had me come to Germany for school, he probably planned all along to keep me from going back to New York, so when the house staff packed my things, almost everything got shipped to Germany, including every gift Nick had given me over 10 years. Among them was a pricey pink diamond ring. A birthday gift from Nick when I turned 18. It was once my most treasured possession. Before, whenever I was sad, seeing that ring instantly cheered me up. Because gifts like rings always carry more meaning than other jewelry. But now, I've slowly started to understand. When someone doesn't really like you, or when their feelings for you aren't genuine, even a marriage contract between you two is like thin air. Let alone these material things. As I sorted through the things Nick gave me one by one, my heart was surprisingly calm, not even a ripple. In the end, the jewelry box was empty. But my heart felt lighter than ever. As I packed them up, ready to send them back, a few Instagram notifications popped up on my phone. It was from the staff at the stable. My little horse was sick, looking listless and refusing to eat. Seeing the photos made my eyes well up instantly. The staff said the pony might be missing me, because I usually visit it every few days. But this time, I didn't go as scheduled. I quickly called to check on it. Miss Vivian, Mr. Nick is actually here too, let me have him talk to you. I paused for a moment before I heard Nick's clear voice. Vivian, when you first got that pony, what did you say? Forgotten already? Of course, I hadn't forgotten. All kids in the family have their own pets. But the only rule is to take full responsibility for the pet they choose and take good care of it. Absolutely no abandonment midway. But wasn't going to study in Germany something you decided 6 months ago? Vivian. Nick suddenly let out a cold chuckle. Since when did you ever listen? You've always been trouble since you were young, haven't you? Mom and Dad adore you. They can't bear to have you leave. If you shed a tear at the end of the day, you're not really that interested in your pony. In that moment, Nick's heart skipped a beat suddenly. He seemed to hear his own underlying message. Vivian didn't really care about him either. Or she wouldn't actually go to Germany. She wouldn't remain unmoved when she found out about his engagement. She wouldn't skip his engagement party. She wouldn't take back the brooch she gave. I'll find time to visit it. If possible, I might bring it to Germany. Are you planning to never come back to New York? Nick's voice suddenly had a hint of anger. I just looked down and laughed. Maybe. Yeah, I'm going to get married in Germany. Naturally, my life focus will shift here. But there's no need to tell Nick all this. Vivian, you're still just as stubborn and childish. Haven't grown a bit. Nick's voice grew colder. You better not regret this. Vivian, regret what? Stella and I are engaged already. The wedding date is being set. And then? Vivian, don't tell me you don't get it. If I really marry Stella, then what? I laughed, feeling relieved and free. Nick, I'll sincerely wish you both well, truly. There was sudden silence from Nick on the other end of the call. And I didn't wait for him to speak, just gently hung up the phone. Back when I was 16, feelings started to blossom. It was relentless. Stubbornly, I refused to call him brother. Now nearly 6 years have flown by. He finally returned to his original, rightful place. I don't hate him, don't blame him. After so many years together, I sincerely wish him well. I called Uncle John. After a friendly chat about how he and Aunt Mary were doing, I gently brought up the brooch. Uncle John, back then, I was young and reckless, made a lot of jokes. Thinking back now, I feel regret and shame. Since Nick is engaged already, I think it's best not to create unnecessary misunderstandings. Uncle John sighed over the phone. Vivian, I've always liked you, always cared about you. In fact, I've always wanted you to be my daughter-in-law. Your Aunt Mary gets teary whenever she mentions you these days. I also feel heartbroken. His sadness was genuine because of their deep affection for me. Uncle, matters of the heart can't be forced. I'm not feeling wronged, Uncle. I've come to terms with it and moved on. I'll make sure to get that brooch back for you. In a few days, your aunt and I will be heading to Germany for a wedding. I'll personally bring the brooch to you at that time. I thanked him, ending the call. The staff for handling valuable shipments had arrived by then. The gift boxes were loaded onto the truck. Soon, they'd be safely delivered back to Nick. In a few days, Uncle John and Aunt Mary would come to Germany. When they returned my sapphire brooch. Those foolish, laughable youthful days would finally come to a complete close. Nick got drunk again at a friend's party. When he came out of the bathroom, he overheard Taylor on the phone. I'm leaving for Germany tomorrow. I promised I'd be your only bridesmaid. Oh, and did you pick the best man? Huh? You picked 7 groomsmen for me? Oh my God, Vivian. I'm so in love with you, babe. Nick stood in the long, empty hallway. Taylor's excited voice seemed to echo in his ears. But in the end, only Vivian stuck with him. He thought he was definitely drunk. Otherwise, why would he hear such an absurd joke? Yeah, he was drunk, real drunk. That's why he thought he heard things. Or maybe, he just missed Vivian. So much so, he turned someone else's name into Vivian's in his head. Nick suddenly staggered over. Taylor. Taylor, just done with her call, was startled. Nick? Who were you talking to? Nick stared into Taylor's eyes. I heard you say you're going to a wedding in Germany, and I heard Vivian's name. His handsome face was a bit twisted, his usually flirtatious eyes filled with redness. He forced a smile, but it was cold, twisted. Don't tell me you're attending Vivian's wedding. Taylor was initially shocked by his look but then snapped back. For how many years had she been upset over Vivian? How many tears had she shed? She felt immensely satisfied seeing Nick like this, Mr. Perfect in the Goof family, getting what he deserved. Didn't he love playing with people's hearts? Didn't he love seeing people who liked him fret over him? He'd have plenty of chances to taste that feeling himself someday. But Taylor wouldn't reveal the truth. Vivian didn't want her to. So she wouldn't. She wouldn't let Nick know and crash the wedding in Germany. That was her dearest friend's happiest day. There was no way she'd let a jerk like him ruin it. You misheard. I'm going to Germany for a wedding, with Vivian. But it's our old classmate getting married. Nick didn't seem convinced. I wasn't aware Vivian had any close friends in Germany. Taylor chuckled. Nick, have you ever truly cared about Vivian, genuinely tried to understand her? Have you ever considered her feelings, put yourself in her shoes? Nick, you haven't. You never knew how amazing our Vivian is. And you never deserved her admiration over the years. Taylor finished and turned to leave. Nick watched her walk off, feeling a sudden pain in his heart. He didn't even know why it hurt. He just felt an urgent, overwhelming need to see Vivian. Even if it was just once. But the next day, Nick got a large package shipped from Germany. And the reason it arrived so quickly was that Ken had his shipping company arrange a special flight to New York. At the time, I was busy and excited with wedding rehearsals, unaware of all this. When Nick opened those boxes, his hands inexplicably trembled. At first, the items seemed unfamiliar. But soon, an overwhelming flood of memories rushed back. The first Hermes bag he bought Vivian. The first pearl necklace. The car keys to her first car. A box filled with colorful gems. And last, the pink diamond ring. Nick held the small pink box, and suddenly his vision blurred. Nick, when are you planning to marry Vivian? Friends used to tease him and Vivian like that. Back then, he was young, rebellious, arrogant. So many girls were after him, but he didn't fancy any of them. 18-year-old Vivian was beautiful and delicate, like a ripe peach. Taking her out sparked envy everywhere. He secretly loved it. Such a pretty Vivian liked only him. Back then, he thought he'd marry her. Or rather, deep down, he always knew he would. That's why he gave her the pink diamond ring. But when did he start getting tired of Vivian? When did new flings beat first loves? Was he really over her? Or just certain she'd never leave him? Nick tightly clutched that ring. And absurdly, he started crying. Meanwhile, I was busy with last-minute wedding rehearsal, unaware I didn't know what reaction Nick had upon seeing those gifts from the past decade. Especially that cherished pink diamond ring. And as Ken kissed me for the first time during rehearsal, I didn't know that Nick had slapped Stella over that ring. How ironic. When Stella tried to frame me, when I got pushed by Nick and hurt my knee. None of us foresaw such a day. But Nick and Stella were now irrelevant in my life. I didn't care in the slightest. When Uncle John brought over a brooch for me, I shared the news of my upcoming wedding with them. They were surprised. Because the wedding they came to Germany for was Ken's family arranging a match for their eldest son. The mysterious fiancé, whom even the sharpest media couldn't get a photo of, turned out to be me. They were happy for me but also tearfully regretful, especially Aunt Mary. She held my hand tightly, refusing to let go. Vivian, I don't want to cry on your big day, but I just feel so let down. It's my fault for not raising my son right. As a result, every step he takes is a mistake. Nick wanted to break up with Stella, but Stella insisted. Her entire entourage also made a scene at Nick's place, threatening to stay put. Anyway, they're barefoot and not afraid of those wearing shoes. When the two were turning the world upside down, Stella found out she was pregnant. Nick's family wouldn't be the kind to make a girl get an abortion. So, their wedding seemed to be in the cards. I teared up, thinking about when I first went to Nick's house, crying every night for my parents. The scenes of her hugging and comforting me. Remembering those carefree days when they loved me like their own daughter. It brought tears to my eyes in the end. Vivian, it's Nick who isn't lucky enough. Auntie wiped my tears, sighed but seemed really relieved. Ken's family has such a great reputation, and Ken himself is outstanding among the new generation of Germans. Vivian, you're going to be happy. I know that with a gentle and refined man like Ken, even if he doesn't love me, I'd still have a happy life. But I never expected happiness to be way more intense than I imagined. When I pinned that sapphire brooch on Ken, he showed me a photo. In the picture, I'm holding a trophy, smiling brightly in a certain direction below the stage. Ken is standing next to me, smiling at me. It was during that horse racing event when I won the championship. And the presenter was Ken. But back then, my mind was all about Nick, and I just gave him a quick glance. All I knew was that he was a young and handsome guy. Never thought fate would bring us together later on. I laughed and cried, pointing at the picture of the two of us like a kid, but couldn't say anything. Ken hugged me from behind. Remember I said I used to like someone? He touched the brooch, resting his chin against my neck. Vivian, I once told myself, when I get that sapphire brooch, I'll tell you. The one I fancy is you. I was obsessed with romance novels in my youth. There's this word often used to describe a male lead, a gentlemanly beast. It's actually a compliment in disguise. But I never thought a man like Ken could have that beastly side. On our wedding day, he was all dignified and handsome, like a snow-capped mountain. But when it came to the wedding night, once those clothes were off, he turned into a beast. For the first time, I heard so many hot love words. For the first time, I was coaxed into those embarrassing positions. For the first time, I cried when it hurt and cried when it was good. The first time I knew love's pleasures, spent a wild night, tireless. The next day after becoming a bride, I slept past noon. Still in bed, while Ken had already finished his morning run, workouts, tea, reading the paper, and catching the news. A few days after the wedding, the house staff laughed as they told me, "Ma'am, you wouldn't believe how much Ken was smiling that day. You know, in all the years I've been at the Ken house, it was the first time I've seen him talk so much in a morning. Greeting everyone. I think he'd love to carry a megaphone just to tell the world he's married and he loves his bride so much. I was both embarrassed and amused. I quickly made up an excuse to hide in the garden. I saw Ken's car drive through the gate. He got out, handed his briefcase and coat to the servant, and immediately looked towards me. Ken, I stood among the flowers, waving and jumping with a smile. My pony was sent to Germany yesterday. Ken arranged everything himself. It was well taken care of and seemed perfectly fine. When I saw it yesterday, it happily pranced around me. Ken smiled seeing me smile. He brushed aside the lush greenery and walked toward me, but by the time he got close, I was already running into his arms. He stopped, shook his head helplessly, but opened his arms wide. When I jumped into his embrace, he held me tight.